The specific type of democracy or specific type of parliamentary democracy in the United Kingdom is often referred to as the Westminster model. Sometimes the Parliament in the UK is referred to as the mother of parliaments. That's because this pattern of fusing executive and legislative authority uh, that you find all throughout the world originated in the United Kingdom. Let's talk specifically about how this arrangement between executive and legislative authority is set up in the United Kingdom. Members of Parliament are elected by their constituencies, and then they assemble. The leader of the majority party in Parliament is invited to form a government, and that person becomes the Prime Minister. And then various other ministers, or sometimes they're officially called Secretary of State for a given policy area, they make up what is called the cabinet. And then the cabinet, the prime minister and the cabinet then are referred to as the government. And that government advances the policies of that party. And the parliament serves as a check on the executive's authority and an agent to legitimize the decisions that have been made in the cabinet. So policy initiatives, almost every major policy initiative will originate with the prime minister and cabinet and then be approved by parliament, almost always on a straight party line vote. This is different than what you find in a presidential model where the executive authority is separated from the legislature, and oftentimes you have rules that specifically forbid executives from being member in the legislature, and the executive is typically elected by the people or through some other electoral mechanism. Let me add about with parliamentary democracy, what happens if somebody doesn't have a majority. Then what typically, or some party doesn't have a majority in parliament, what would typically happen is you would have a coalition government be formed, and the leader of the largest party would be the prime minister. Another way to look at the regime type in the UK would be to call it a liberal democracy. A liberal democracy has two key components. The first thing is that people have to exercise real political power, which means elections have to have consequences. So in the United Kingdom, real power is exercised by people. The elections have consequences. The ballot box isn't stuffed. Elections aren't predetermined. So when people go to vote, they have a real set of choices. But also with liberal democracy, you have to have respect for civil liberties and civil rights. You can't have suppression of a particular minority group. You can't have suppression of a particular group, for example, women. And you also have to have protection for basic civil liberties such as speech, press, assembly, and so forth. We could look at the United Kingdom as being a representative democracy, but we would not necessarily classify it as a republic. In a representative democracy, people exercise power through elected representatives, and that's true in the case of the United Kingdom, but they are not a republic. This is because in a republic, people exercise power through elected representatives, and there can be no inherited positions. So in the United Kingdom, there are inherited positions in the form of the monarch and a few remaining hereditary members of the House of Lords. So yes, the best fit for the United Kingdom is to refer to it as a democracy. It is, but it's not a republic. Sources of legitimacy. Okay, what legitimacy is, it refers to people's belief that the regime, the governing system, has rightful authority to make policy and to govern them. Okay, so political systems need legitimacy if they're going to be followed, obeyed. Otherwise, the political system has to expend a lot of money in terms of enforcement, a lot of effort, a lot of resources have to be put toward coercive institutions such as police and military, and to coerce people into obedience. If a political system has a high degree of legitimacy, then typically the need for coercive institutions is reduced. It's never eliminated, but people, for the most part, voluntarily comply. In the United Kingdom, there are several sources of legitimacy. Number one, tradition. simply the fact that things have always been this way. Now, previously we've talked about political change in the United Kingdom being an example of gradualism, evolution, not revolution, but still yet that change is gradual enough that most people in their own lifetimes don't notice that much of a difference. So one of the things that's characteristics of human beings is that if this system has worked this way, then we're going to keep doing it. If something works, then we're going to keep doing it. That idea of tradition or precedent definitely has a lot of value in the minds of most individuals. So the fact that decisions have always been made this way, then obviously it must be okay to continue to make decisions this way. Religion. In the United Kingdom, there are two established churches, that is to say two government religions. The one for England and Wales is the Church of England, sometimes referred to as the Anglican Church, and the established church in Scotland is the Presbyterian Church. And in both instances, the monarch, Queen Elizabeth, is the head of both. So in this system, the government can claim some sort of mantle of authority from religious institutions. They kind of bolster the legitimacy of the government, and that helps people accept some of the decisions that the government makes. Democracy. The idea that the vast majority of political power is held in the hands of the people who exercise it, albeit indirectly through Parliament, goes a long way to helping people accept the decisions that are made by the Parliament and the government and cabinet. So, in fact, democracy is such an appealing source of legitimacy that even dictatorial regimes, they still try to have the illusion of democracy. Most people accept decisions made by an organization if they believe that they have had a real say in how those decisions are made. So the fact that the United Kingdom is a democratic system aids in its legitimacy. Electoral system. The electoral system in the United Kingdom would be characterized as first past the post, or sometimes we refer to it in U.S. politics as single-member districts with plurality election. So in this system, you have a district, and inside of that electoral district, there can only be one representative. You don't have multi-member districts. So the decision-making matrix is bimodal. Somebody's either going to win the election or lose the election. There is no prize for second place. So in the United Kingdom, what we find would be 650 constituencies, and in every one of those constituencies, let's say, for example, Party A got 51% of the vote and Party B got 49% of the vote. Party A would have all 650 seats in Parliament, even though they only got a tad over half of the vote in each constituency. This can be contrasted with a proportional representation system where seats in the national legislature are allocated to various parties based upon the strength of that party in elections. As previously mentioned, there's a fixed 5-year term for Parliament, so members of Parliament are elected for a specific length of time, and at the end of that length of time, Parliament's dissolved and new elections are held. Previously, that was a variable term of up to 5 years, so you could dissolve Parliament and restart the clock and so forth, which definitely gave the party in control a sizable advantage. Party system. The United Kingdom has a two-party system, or the little twist that I like to put on it is 2.5 parties. But the reason why they have two major parties would be a consequence of FPTP. In every political system, or virtually every political system that has first past the post as its electoral system, there are two major parties. And these parties tend to be broad-based coalitions. We see this in the United Kingdom, we see it in the United States, you see it in Australia, you see it in Canada, you see it in France. Whenever there is an FPTP electoral system, there will probably be two major parties, and those parties will be broad coalitions of various interests that try to secure government benefits or protection for their members through that political party. Major parties in the United Kingdom include, first, the Labour Party. The Labour Party is the center-left party, and they represent people or individuals that are ideologically liberal. They represent middle to working class individuals down to poor people. And in particular, they have an appeal to the trade unionists. They represent organized labor. On the right side of the political spectrum would be the Conservative Party. So the Conservatives would be center-right party. Their nickname, sometimes they're referred to as Tories. These individuals will represent people who are ideologically conservative. They will represent people in the middle class up to the wealthy, and they will represent people who have a vested interest in keeping everything the same. Minor parties of note. The most important minor party would be the Liberal Democrats, sometimes called the Lib Dems. They're a merger of the Liberal Party and the Social Democratic Party, which historically had worked in an organization called the Alliance. They now went ahead and merged. Their ideology is center to center left. Originally, the Liberal Party was the dominant left of center party, but in the 1920s they failed to embrace the trade union movement and had been largely supplanted on the left side by the Labor Party. So, as previously mentioned, we've said that the FPTP tends to produce two major parties. So how is it possible that you'll have minor parties that would be successful? This is possible because there are 650 constituencies in the United Kingdom, and you've got a population of about twice the size of California. So with so many people and these constituencies being relatively small, if a party is geographically concentrated, it is possible then that these minor parties will capture seats in Parliament. This can be contrasted with the United States, where you have 435 seats in the House and a population approaching 330 million people. So it's very difficult for a minor party, even if it is geographically concentrated in the United States, to capture a seat in the House of Representatives. There are also, in the United Kingdom, what are called nationalist parties. You see a few members from the Scottish Nationalist Party, the Welsh Nationalist Party, and what these individuals, they typically get 1, 2, 3 seats maybe. And what these individuals agitate for is increasing independence and perhaps even total independence from the Parliament in Westminster. Political socialization and political culture. Political culture of the United Kingdom, various facets of political culture in the United Kingdom, one of which would be gradualism. As I've said before, this is the idea that change will take place slowly, but change will take place. And again, best expressed through the phrase evolution, not revolution. Another element of political culture in the United Kingdom is noblesse oblige. And this is the idea that those individuals who hold political power, even if they are not elected, hold political power and have to exercise political power to the benefit of everybody. And this is one of the reasons why the United Kingdom was able to avoid many of the social revolutions that were going on in Europe historically. Another political element of political culture in the United Kingdom is pragmatism. In the United Kingdom, ideology or rabid adherence to a specific ideology is not usually what you'll find. For the most part, individuals tend to be pretty pragmatic. There's also wide acceptance for the welfare state. Let's go ahead and define the term welfare state. The concept of the welfare state is the idea that the government or the regime has an obligation to provide for an individual's needs, basic needs, from the time that they are born to the time that they die. So there'll be this minimum level of protection or minimum guarantee of existence for the needs of an individual from the time that they're born to the time that they die. This is manifest in various programs such as unemployment, the national health care system, you probably also argue public education, and so forth.